New reporting and fallout this morning over President Trump's claims that the FBI improperly spied on his 2016 campaign. Here is the president's tweet. Reports are there was indeed at least one FBI representative implanted for political purposes into my campaign for president. It took place very early on and long before the phony Russian hoax became a hot fake news story. If true, all-time biggest political scandal. Let's bring in former Justice Department official Robert Driscoll, a little more insight on all of this. And we got to give you credit where credit was due. It was a couple of months ago on this show that you talked about how the president can't be indicted by a special counsel, and that's exactly what the president's attorney then came out and said. So you've got a high bar to live up to. Break this down between the New York Times and Washington Post reporting that the FBI had an informant go talk to a couple members of the Trump campaign and see what they knew about dealings with Russia, and the president's accusations that he was being spied on by the FBI. One man's spy is another man's informant, or something different?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of it. I think all of this devolves into whether there was a valid basis to do any of this in the first place. I mean, if there's a valid FBI investigation going on, the use of confidential informants isn't particularly remarkable. But if there's not a valid investigation going on, then this could be nefarious. And I found the when you say
valid investigation, you mean did the FBI have a valid reason to begin looking at these campaign? It was Papadopoulos and Carter Page and others, whether indeed they were talking to the Russians or weren't they, or whether the FBI had been ordered, say, by DOJ or by President Obama.
Right, exactly. And there's some weasel words in the New York Times article I saw where they mentioned, whoever was leaking to the New York Times, that this type of witness might be used even prior to the opening of an informal investigation or by intelligence agencies other than the FBI. Both of those would be very concerning if, for example, the CIA or the NSA had somebody talking to people in the Trump campaign. But again, if there was a validly open investigation with a valid basis, it wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world.
You listen to the president's supporters, it's almost this idea that the president was being set up when he was then candidate Trump by the FBI. You listen to Democrats, they say this is proof of near treasonous behavior. And then you listen to Mark Warner, Democrat of Virginia. It would be irresponsible at best. It would be, at best, irresponsible and at worst potentially illegal for members of Congress to use their positions to learn the identity of an FBI source for the purpose of undermining the ongoing investigation into Russian interference in our election. These are big words being thrown around.
Right. It strikes me the parallels all the time to the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal. I mean, it's just amazing how partisan it's become, the attacks on a special counsel. I mean, I think of the attacks on Linda Tripp. Remember, she wore the wire and implicated Monica Lewinsky, how one side said she was the most evil person in the world, the other side thought she was a do-gooder. And we're seeing the same thing with whoever this confidential informant is. Everyone's jumping in immediately. Is someone a rat or is somebody
somehow
doing
truth,
God's
justice,
work?
and the American way gets lost along the way.
Right, and because impeachment's the only remedy, devolution to a completely partisan food fight is in the president's interest because he can't be convicted of impeachment with the number of Republicans in the Senate.
Real quickly, though, before we go on this issue of Giuliani saying that the president can't be indicted, does this make it more likely that the president sits down with Robert Mueller? We know from Giuliani and John Roberts' reporting that he is going to start being prepped for a sit-down. That doesn't mean it actually happens.
Well, I think it gives him a little more leverage in negotiating terms with special counsel, and that special counsel, I doubt, really wants to have a year-long litigation going to the Supreme Court to determine what his authority is to subpoena the president. And so that's a legal fight you could have, but I doubt he wants to have it. And the fact that there won't be an indictment at the end of the day and the president has the ability to walk away probably gives Giuliani a little more leverage to negotiate more narrow terms of that.
Well, in John Roberts reporting indicating that Giuliani's already using that leverage about the scope of the questioning, et cetera. Mr. Driscoll, good to see you. We'll see if any of your prophecies prove true. We'll have you back when they do. Thank you.
All right, fake news. CNN's credibility continues to be called into question. Today, during an interview on the liberal network, President Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, called out the entire network for their blatant bias. Watch this.
Does the president ever get the benefit of the doubt with you, Chris? Ever?
Rudy.
Or on this network, which is disgusting?
I would tell you something. I think he gets the benefit of the doubt much more often than you give credit for.
Do you know that most people think that I'm crazy to come on here? That it's
Why?
so unfair to the president. That
Do you think this interview has been unfair?
Yeah, I do.
You think this interview has been unfair?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because I don't think you've given me a chance to explain how unjust this case is. I don't think you've given me a chance to explain the basis of it with the FBI report that was faulty, the FBI report that came to the conclusion. I don't understand how a man can be prosecuted when you come to a conclusion you didn't do anything wrong. I mean, how can you investigate a man where you come to a conclusion you did anything wrong? You guys never, you didn't even play up that part of the report.
Now, Rudy Giuliani's right. Fake news CNN basically never gives this president a fair shake. They never will. They're not even honest about it. Now, for example, earlier this week, CNN Trump hater, official Trump hater, supposedly a reporter, supposedly objective, Jim Acosta, he goes on Jimmy Kimmel Live and he said he was just as tough on Obama as he is on President Trump. It's not a joke. Take a look.
Are you their least favorite of all?
Probably,
yeah.
But, you know, as FDR once said, I welcome their hatred. I do. And, you know, listen, when I covered Barack Obama, I was just as tough on him. People might not believe that.
You were. They didn't like you either.
They didn't like me either.
Universally disliked.
I am,
everywhere
yes.
you go.
So how Acosta can actually say that with a straight face is beyond me, because the tapes don't lie. And our friends at the Media Research Center, they found this gem of Jim Acosta covering President Obama's inauguration in 2013. The only thing missing from the so-called reporter are the pom-poms. Take a look.
And obviously, this is the moment that everybody is waiting for on Inauguration Day, when the President and the First Lady step out of their limo and walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. You know, I feel like I should pinch myself right now, Wolf. I can't believe I have this vantage point of history in the making.
So you're literally, what, about 15, 20 feet away from the president?
I'm probably a good, I would say, 50 feet away from the president right now, Wolf. But very, very close.
Yeah, with Obama, he needs to pinch himself. And he says he's a reporter, says he's a journalist. No, he's a liberal activist. Be honest about it. Now, earlier I spoke with White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders about this and so much more. All right, Sarah, thank you for joining us. You know, you look at all of what I'm pointing out here, I don't think there's ever been a more hostile news media in the country than there's been to President Trump. I think it's obvious. It's so bad that there is 91% negative coverage, according to the Media Research Center.
It's unreal, the amount of negative coverage that comes from the media covering this White House, not just because it's so one-sided, but because there's so many good things that they could be talking about. The economy's booming, ISIS is on the run, remaking of the judiciary, getting rid of the individual mandate, the foreign policy and the relationships that this president has built. Every single day there's a good news story to tell, and yet 90% of the coverage is negative. Sean, one of the clips that I hope that you'll go back and watch that I think Jim Acosta also said from that interview was that he'd love to go one-on-one with President Trump. I just a little note to Jim, I think he should stick with going one-on-one with me, because President Trump is way out of his league, and I don't think he wants to take on that challenge, because he's definitely not going to win. I think that the media bias is out of control, and he's certainly one of the leaders of the pack.
If he wants to be an opinion person, I'm a talk show host, and as a talk show, sometimes I do straight news interviews, sometimes I give opinion, other times I moderate debates, sometimes I debate. It's all encompassing, but I tell everybody I'm a conservative. We still do a lot of. We break more stories than most of them in a week than they do in a year, in my opinion, and they've been wrong so often. Why does this continue in this sense? Every day I watch you. I don't know how you do your job. There's not enough money on this earth to pay me to do what you do. And it's actually gotten personal and abusive. And have we gotten to the point where maybe they should submit their questions in writing, hand back written answers, because all they're really trying to do is get a moment so they can show their audiences how tough they are, and it's really just it's showtime for them. It's not about getting answers.
Look, I do my job because I love this country, and I love getting to come to work every day and work for President Trump. who also loves this country and wants to do good things. You can block out the critics and focus on the people across the country that love the president, love what he's doing, and we try to spend our energy focused on those comments and the people and the voices coming from outside of D.C. and outside of New York and outside of the talking heads, because those are the people that really matter, and those are certainly overwhelmingly supporting President Trump and what he's done, and that makes it pretty easy to come to work every day.
You know, look at this week. The president was answering a question about the violent gang known as MS-13. It was obvious. The media ran with it, and then they ended up almost all of them having to retract it. There's a lot of retracting that they really need to do, though.
It's incredible. A lot of times you see the media just automatically assume the worst out of this president, which is really sad because, again, I think they're missing out on some of the most amazing things that are happening. He's had an incredible first year and a half, and they're missing it because they're so focused on being negative and attacking not just the president but everyone around him. And I think that's a real disservice to the country. He clearly was talking about MS-13 when he referenced the animals. And I said it yesterday. I'll say it again. I think he could have gone even further. These are some of the most despicable people that have ever walked this planet. The things that they do, the type of activity they engage in. Animal is the nicest thing I think that the president could have called them, and I hope he'll continue to call them out and continue to put pressure on every law enforcement agency and official in this country to bring them down and protect people across all over the country, and certainly I think he's done a great job doing that.
All right, Sarah, great job. I don't know how you do it every day. Amazing, and we appreciate you being with us.